This story is a little nuts. Our story starts south of France, 1611, in a place called Aix. A convent of nuns, stone walls thick and deep enough to keep sound completely trapped in. High up walls, tiny windows, complete isolation. The thing you have to understand is back then, when the nuns entered, they didn't leave. This was just the norm. They wake up before the crack of dawn, they pray 7 times a day, maybe 8. Most are young, most were born into it. Never asked if this is the life they wanted. A lot of the time, the family couldn't afford a dowry, so this was the only option. But imagine that isolation. The cold, the dark, the same 15, 20 women, the same faces, uttering the same prayers for 40 years in complete isolation. So winter of 1609 comes around, and one of the nuns begins to shake. The sister's name is Madeleine du Demandaux du La Pelou. She's young, by every account, a perfectly healthy young woman. It starts small, a tremor, a shake, but it doesn't end there. It starts to get bad. Her body starts doing things that are anything but normal. Her limbs, they start moving without her choosing. Her back arches. She jerks around and screams. The other sisters try to pin her down, but it doesn't help. They end up having to tie her and strap her to a bed. There's not a single illness that anyone there can name. There's no fever, no injury, nothing in the family that explains it. And before long, it spreads. Sister Louise Capot is next, and Louise is a lot worse. See, she's not just dealing with convulsion. Louise has a voice as well coming from inside of her, and it's a male, deep voice. It moves at a strange pace. It gives itself a name. It calls itself Verine. So now, at this point, the convent is desperate for answers. So here's where the story starts to take a turn and get interesting. About 30 miles north in Marseille, there's a priest. His name is Louis Gauffridi. Louis has grown pretty popular in the area. He's a handsome young priest that the women in his parish seem to just simply adore. The inquisitor that has come down to investigate the possessions takes a special interest in Gauffridi. He actually coins a name, the Prince of Magicians. The interesting part, the 2 nuns showing signs of possessions have never left the convent. They've never been to Marseille. There's no connection between them and this man. Absolutely none. So here's where the story takes a turn. When the inquisitors question the demons, when Verine speaks through Louise, the demon describes hell. It gives out rank. It lays a perfect order, names, an entire hierarchy, and the inquisitor writes down every single word. During the extensive questioning, the inquisitor also asks the nuns who did this to them. And Madeleine speaks out, or something speaks through Madeleine for the first time. A voice loud and deep, and 2 words come out clear and undeniable. Louis Graffiti. The church arrest him right away. Full disclaimer, the next part is not for the weak of heart. There's an important point. Back then, the church believed that if you made a pact with Satan, you'd carry the mark, and the mark was small but simple. It was a small spot on the body that, if punctured, wouldn't bleed. So knowing this, they take Graffiti back and they shave him, all of him, head to toe. Then comes the needle. They puncture him all over his body, inch by inch. They don't stop when he screams or cries in pain. They only stop when they find a spot that does not bleed. So if you just think about that for a second, you're looking for a small piece of skin on a man you've already stabbed over 100 times that doesn't bleed. And eventually they found a spot. So it doesn't stop there. Needless to say, the torture went on and on. After a while of this, he finally confessed and recited the pact he gave to Lucifer, word for word. Later, he would take this back, but at that point, it was already too late. No one believed him, and his fate was sealed. They dragged him through the streets of Aix for 5 hours. Then they killed him and burned his body in front of the city. But that's not where this story ends, because after he died, Madeleine fully recovered. Like whatever had grabbed hold of her let go the moment that he'd stopped breathing. Unfortunately, Louise Capot never recovered. Not that year, not the next. When she died, it was rumored she was still possessed. The year is now 1632, and the story takes us to Loudun, western France. In the spring of 1632, the plague arrives. By the time it burns out, more than 3,000 people are dead. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's the equivalent of 1 in 4 people you know passing away. And this is 1632, so there's no science explaining disease, no understanding that this is even a sickness. It just comes, takes what it wants, and then says bye. There's a convent in Loudun, 17 nuns, same rules as before. Once they come in, they don't leave. Doors stay shut. But to fully understand the gravity of this, there's 17 women sealed inside the center of a town that's losing a quarter of its population. The worst part? They can't see it. They hear it. The bells, the carts, the screams, and then it all stops. Quiet. The plague is gone, and with it, a huge chunk of the town. Brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. And everyone's just supposed to go back to normalcy, back to regular life. And 5 months later, the nuns start having dreams. The woman in charge is Jeanne des Agnes. She's about 30. A childhood injury twisted her spine and has left her in constant pain. The important thing to know is she didn't choose this life either. There was just no one to marry, which was everything back then. So she turned her life to the convent. After years of being in the convent, she ends up running it herself. So in the middle of the night, in September 1632, Jeanne wakes up. There's a dark shape standing in her room. She recognizes him. It's Father Mousseau, their confessor, only he had been dead for weeks. At first, it's just him, and some of the other nuns were seeing him too, standing there, watching. But things suddenly change. The nuns start dreaming about a different man entirely, one of them that they've never met. At night, he comes to them. He touches them, and in the morning, they can perfectly describe his face. The important thing that we need to address is that they didn't just dream of this man touching them. These were erotic dreams, and they could all recount them in similar detail. I'm not going to go into erotica on this channel, but that's an important detail. So who exactly was this man? The person they are describing is Urbain Grandier, a priest, right there in Loudun. By all accounts, this man is very, very good at his job. He's got a presence. He's a brilliant speaker. Every night he has a packed church. The kind of person that you'd go far to see. And he does let this get to his head. It'd be easy just hearing all the good things to interpret him as a saint, but he's the opposite. He's arrogant, vain, an adulterer, frequently having affairs with women in his own parish. He even fathers a child with the daughter of the king's prosecutor. When the church comes after him for breaking his celibacy vow, he pretty much says that the rules shouldn't apply to priests anyway. So for the time, he's not a good man. He's a smart one who knows how to take advantage perfectly of the system. And at some point, Grandier writes a satire. It's about a man named Cardinal Richelieu. Richelieu is effectively the guy running France. Now, if you know anything about French politics back in 1600s, the king is, of course, the actual leader, but Richelieu holds all the real power, as the church usually did. And Grandier just made fun of him in print. So to sum it up, 17 women, an entire convent, having vivid dreams about this man. They can describe his face, his voice, what he wears, and not one of them has ever met him. And the convulsions start. The arching, losing control of limbs, deep voices that aren't theirs. And it doesn't stop at the women. Objects move around, pages torn out of the Bible. So the church sends in exorcists. They perform exorcisms on the women around the clock. They ask the women one question over and over and over. Who did this to you? And I'll just leave this here. Both priests running the exorcisms, they knew Grandier personally. Neither of them liked him, needless to say. Every one of them names Grandier. They say he threw a bouquet of flowers over the convent wall, and they show the exorcists exactly where it landed. And the last question the exorcists asks the women, what demon is inside of them? It answers. 2 names, Zabulon and Asmodeus. Asmodeus is not a minor demon. He has been in these books for thousands and thousands of years. And what he's the demon of is lust. So they immediately move to have Grandier arrested, and at first, the trial isn't looking great for the nuns. The court takes one look at this guy and the two priests that hate him, and it becomes obvious that this is a case of hysterical nuns against him, so the case is thin. Here's where Cardinal Richelieu comes into play. See, he hears about this case and immediately sends down a royal commissioner with the full authority of the state behind him. Two important things you should know about this commissioner. The first, he's related to Jean, essentially the head of the 17 nuns. 2, he arrives with a royal decree stopping any courts in France from interfering with this trial, meaning no appeals. So things just aren't looking so good at this point for Grandier. The man accused of witchcraft is being tried by a relative of his accuser under rules that make the verdict unappealable. The trial takes 18 days, over 5,000 pages of testimony, and they put the demons on trial. When I say they put the demons on trial, they literally put the nuns on the stand. And they didn't question the nuns, they questioned the entities speaking through them. And if that's not bad enough, the prosecution produces a document they say that is stolen out of the devil's own cabinet. It's a contract for Grandier's soul. It's written in Latin backwards. You can only read it if you hold it up to a mirror or glass. It's not signed by him either. It's signed by Lucifer, Beelzebub, Satan, Astaroth, Leviathan, and at the bottom countersigned by a demon named Baal-Barith. His title is Recorder. Somebody had kept minutes. This next part of the story is dark, so again, if you have a sensitive stomach, skip ahead, because before they kill him, they want the names of his accomplices. So I think you know where this is going. They take him to a room, they put his legs between 4 boards, 2 on the outside of each leg, and 2 between his knees. Then they take wooden wedges and a mallet, and they start driving the wedges into the gaps. Each wedge tightens the board. Now, a normal prisoner gets 4 wedges, but for a man already condemned, they're allowed 8. Grandier got 8. By the time they were finished, some accounts say the bones in his legs were completely shattered, and that all that was left was a pool of marrow on the floor. He never gave them a single name. Not one. Just repeated that he had nothing to confess. So Grandier is sentenced to be burned. There's a mercy in it though, because before the fire is actually lit, they strangle you on the post. It's quick, so you don't feel the burn. They promised him this much. They lead him out. 6,000 people come to see it. He tries to say something to the crowd, but every time he opens his mouth, the monk in front of him throws holy water in his face. Here's the darkest part. When they go to strangle him, someone had tied a hitch in the rope deliberately, so when it was supposed to tighten, it didn't. He was still alive and screaming when they lit the fire. There's one more thing I'll leave with you. An account of someone standing near the stake said they saw a fly, a rather large fly circling Grandier's head as the fire took him. The person saw it and recognized it right away. There's a demon in these books who means Lord of Flies. The same demon that signed the contract. Now Grandier is dead, and it is now August 1634. So the demons should have left. That's how it works. You find the sorcerer, you burn the sorcerer, the women are free. But the demons don't leave. The exorcisms kept going, not for a week, not for a month, but 4 more years. Twice a day, every day except Sunday. They also opened the doors to the public. People came from all over France. They came from other countries. At the peak, 7,000 people are showing up to watch 17 women convulse on a stone floor while somebody sold tickets. Here's the thing no one advertised. The church actually has rules for verifying possessions, real tests. A demon should know things the woman couldn't. It should speak languages she's never learned. So they tested them, and the nuns had failed every time. They couldn't speak Latin they hadn't studied, couldn't answer questions in Greek, couldn't read a sealed letter, couldn't levitate, couldn't tell a man what he was thinking. Every test, every time. And when a nun who'd never learned Latin failed the Latin test, the exorcist had an explanation ready to go. She was just possessed by a demon who didn't speak Latin. And then there's something I left out back in the Aix convent. 20 years earlier, when Verine spoke through Louise Capot and laid out the ranks of hell in complete and perfect order, and the Inquisitor wrote down every word, it actually matched a book that the Inquisitor wrote himself. The demons had done their reading. The commissioner who ran Grandier's trial was related to the woman who accused him. The judge who said publicly that this was nonsense, Jean denounced him as a sorcerer. He lost his mind and he never recovered. And that contract that was signed by Lucifer, Beelzebub, Astaroth, and Leviathan, somebody had sat down in a room with a pen and wrote that out by hand backwards and signed it as the devil. And I've thought about this a lot. I still don't know which explanation is worse, if this was done by man or if there was actually a possession, because that still doesn't explain what had initially happened to the nuns to begin with. 13 years have now passed. Loudun is quiet. The exorcism have stopped. The tourists have gone home. The 17 women are back to regular prayer. But the story isn't over, because it happens again this time in Normandy, northern France, different convent, different nuns. This time it starts with just one, Sister Madeleine Bavon. The convulsions, the back arching, a voice that isn't her, you know where this is going. This time it spreads to 18 of them in the convent. They ask what's doing this to her, and Madeleine answers, screaming, hysterical, not really making much sense, until she says she's married to it. She says she was taken to a Sabbath, that there was a ceremony, she was given to something, and she gives it a name, Dagon. Through hours of questioning, they finally get the other name, the one that they're actually after. She gives them a priest, Father Mathieu-Ron Picard. Father Picard has been dead for 5 years. The women say a name of a man who has been in the ground for half a decade. He's been doing this to them right now, nightly. They say he's doing it from the grave. The church makes a decision. They go to the graveyard, they find his plot, they dig him up. They pull his body from the ground and they put it on trial. They put a corpse on trial. That's not it. They find him guilty and they excommunicate the body from the church. And then they take his corpse and they take Father Thomas Boulet, who Madeleine also named, and they burned both of them. Only one could scream. There's one more thing from Louviers. There's an account written by a man who was there. During the worst of the possession, he describes one of the nuns running. He says a priest reached out and grabbed her by the arm and held on, and her body kept turning as if the arm were fixed to the shoulder by a spring. I want to tell you about 2 more people, and then I'll let you go. Back in Loudun, before Grandier burned, the church sent a Jesuit priest named Jean-Joseph Souron to help with the exorcisms. He was a mystic. He was frail. He took it seriously in a way that the other men simply didn't. He looked at these women convulsing on the floor and he believed them, and he couldn't stand it. So he made an offer. He asked God to take the demons out of Jean d'Agnes and put them in him instead. He volunteered. It worked, or something happened, because that day for the next 20 years, Souron could not reliably speak, and he lost the use of his hands. He could not read, he could not write. For a period, he could not walk. He wrote, when he could, that he was certain he was damned, that the thing inside of him, with its own opinions, he could feel it moving. He tried to off himself, but he lived to be 65. He got exactly what he asked for, whatever it was. And then there's Jeanne, the head of the convent in Loudun. Her exorcisms ended in 1637, and when the last demon left her body, it left something behind. Names written on the skin of her left hand. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Now, people have opinions about how those got there, but it doesn't really matter because she was the only woman in France with the name of the Holy Family written on her body. Jeanne toured the country. She was received in the great houses. Crowds came to see the hand. She was granted an audience with the king, and She was also granted an audience with Cardinal Richelieu, the man who sent the commissioner that rigged the trial that killed Urbain Grandier. She showed him her hand, and she died famous in her own convent 28 years after Grandier burned. They kept her body. Her hand was preserved as a relic. People came to look at it for about 200 years. So Aix, Loudun, Louviers, 3 convents, 3 men in the ground, and more than 20 other outbreaks across Europe that nobody bothered to write down. Something got into those buildings. I don't know what it was, but it knew exactly who to name. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel.